Okay, so this film is kind of a footnote to what we established what we're going to see coming up in the 80s. I know they came out in 81, but this is going to amplify what we're going to see a lot in the 80s. And I talk about 80s as not really excess and indulgence, but it's usually sold, but it's almost like subtlety is no more. Mm-hmm. And this movie is the launch pad for films that we're going to see characters that subtlety is gone.
Welcome back to the show. I'm one of your hosts, Kyle Goethe from GoatFilmReviews.com.
Hey everybody, welcome back. This is Nick from the St. Paul Filmcast. Thanks for watching. Thanks for finding us. And for our loyal fans, thank you for continuing to support the show. The show is on Twitter and on Instagram. You can follow us there. We're both members of the Minnesota Film Critics Alliance. Check out the webpage for other critics' reviews as well as ours. And today we're going to talk about James Caan's and Michael Mann's, let's call it a masterpiece.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thief.
So, Frank is an ex-con who's gotten back on his feet with his own bar and dealership, but that's not where he makes his money. No. Frank moonlights as a thief, but he has a code and a rule set to help him survive this nightlife until he starts breaking his rules and falling in love.
Well, you could have done the reverse. He moonlights as a used car salesman.
He sunlights.
Sunlights as a used car salesman, but his real job is thieving.
That's fair.
So what the story is, I think, if I remember right, Michael Mann was having a tough time getting a good script out for Straight Time, starring Dustin Hoffman. Every time he submitted a script, it was reworked, until finally he got somebody else new. And Michael Mann was like, if I'm going to talk about criminals, maybe I should interview criminals. So he went to Folsom Prison, just whatever he wants to talk. It just opened up a window and they talked, and he got a lot of information data. And from that experience, you have two scripts, Thief and Heat, comes from that experience. Not to mention, he filmed the movie Jericho Mile in Folsom Prison.
So that was where he kind of got the beginnings of the thought process that would eventually become Thief.
So
it's cool
for writers, especially his whole launchpad experience of making movies was because he's a failed writer for a certain movie.
Yeah, that's fair. Failure is only a step on the path, people.
Right, yes.
And also, there's another note to be said here. As a writer, you are going to fail, and it's best to fail up. Find a bigger failure than the one before, because it at least teaches you something new.
Right.
But the other thing, too, is if you're going to be a writer, if you're going to be a storyteller, a crafter in any way, visit places you don't normally go to. Now, I'm not saying go get in jail, but visit places that you wouldn't normally get, because that's where the ideas come from.
He just checked into a prison and he was like, who do you want to see today? He goes, anybody wants to talk to me.
Yeah.
And he did it for a couple of weeks.
I accidentally ended up at a Hawaii aquarium about 5-6 years ago. An aquarium in Hawaii, a big SeaWorld kind of place. And in about an hour, I'd crafted a short story in my mind that I wrote on the flight home. So it's all about finding new places to go to, and that's where the idea came from this film. I love where we start this movie, because, to be honest, this is a movie called Thief that doesn't have a whole lot of thieving.
I like how it looks, the start of this movie, because it's a slow, even for a small budget movie, it's a tracking shot down from the cityscape. You get away from it, but now we're going to get dirty. It's dark. Put the weather in your movies. It's raining out. I don't know. They continue into the rain. I don't know how they shot this in 8 hours? Because it's consistently raining. It's not like you could go back the next day and reshoot stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure that they probably shot as much wide coverage as they could. But that's the thing about the film, is there's not as much wide coverage in general. If you watch Michael Mann, he rarely lets the camera rise above the buildings. He rarely looks past the buildings to the sky. It's all about being confined to the city. He talked about this on this tremendous, let me point this out, this tremendous Criterion release of Thief. He talked about how the film, he wanted to be kind of entrapped in the city. Like, you're not outside the city at any point. You're not above it. You're not outside it.
You're going down into it. I love that alley shot. It was wonderful.
Yeah, so the idea of being in this grid of location that you have to traverse was very important to him. And it does feel like he's trapped in the city. It feels like he can't break himself out.
Yeah.
And that's very important, because he has trouble breaking out of a lot of things that he's doing.
And he loves that neon green. He always puts that in the movie.
Dude, I wish Michael Mann was still making movies that looked like this.
Yeah.
It breaks my heart.
Our green screen, that's Michael Mann. He loves that green color, yeah. So, and aesthetically, Michael Mann got his start by filming commercials in the UK, and he had to compete with Ridley Scott, Alan Parker, Adrian Lyne, and those guys pretty much try to one-up each other with commercials. And you can see the aesthetic working here because there's a lot of shots that I don't think a traditional director would use.
Okay.
But like you put the camera on the car and just see the reflecting lights on the hood.
Yeah.
And really just the lighting, the wetness of it, all the lighters fits perfect for somebody that learned their trade doing commercials.
But again, he's also, that comes back to the cityscape enclosure too, where we're looking at the car hood to see the lights in the sky because we can't look up. We cannot look at the sky. We cannot look upwards, yep. But we have to see everything in reflection of how it works on the ground where the ants are, you know? And I think that's kind of the spectacular thing about it is that James Caan he's kind of doubling down. His character Frank is a guy who's gotten out of prison. He's won himself over, and he's that guy who's consistently saying, this is the last one I'm going to do. I get the feeling he's said that for 4 years, mm-hmm. you know, ever since he started thieving professionally, is this will be the last one, and then I want to do another one, of
Almost
course.
like an addict. Yeah.
Yeah, and so he's got this code of conduct he learned from Willie Nelson's Okla.
Which is kind of the weakest point of the movie is Willie Nelson's character is not really developed. I
just don't think he has much to do.
Yeah.
He's not really featured in the film that much, but what I like is what his character does for Caan. What his character does for Frank,
but you got a
father figure.
This is a good movie. You got to nitpick a little bit out of it. Yeah.
I only have one nitpick.
Yeah.
I only have one problem with the whole film, and that is that I think the finale style shootout with Robert Prosky and the other guys at his home feels a bit like Caan is untouchable.
But he's not subtle.
No, but he goes in and there's a moment like where these three guys are coming up to shoot him, and he's just standing still. Boom.
But it's what I'm trying to establish when we talked about that episode. It's this launch pad of what we're going to see in a lot of other 80s movies from now on. Almost like he's a force. Almost like what we're going to see from Rambo and what we're going to see from Arnold. This guy that's just going to stand there. You're going to shoot him, but he's just not going to take...
Going back to our
Predator take the bullets, episode. He's just going to walk away. Yep.
He ain't got time to bleed, is I think what you're trying to say.
He ain't got time to bleed,
you know?
Right, yeah.
But I also wish because the rest of the film doesn't feel like that. That's my one nitpick of the whole thing. I don't think it tanks the film at all. I think it makes a perfect film into a 4.5 for me. Like it just lowers it a notch. Where it's like, man, I wish that ending had a little bit more oomph to it. Because he is a force of nature at that moment, but I also feel like he goes into that situation expecting to die. And so the standing still part, I kind of feel like he either should have died or he should have had to fight more to live.
Not to mention, going back to my reference, and that's great, that we're not subtle anymore, but knowing that you're going to, and we believe it, because it's shot really well. He almost like, I'm not going to come, I'm going to just massacre him. I'm not going to come on. Maybe I'm going to die. I don't care. But he's still... scorched earth policy of just bombing the crap out of everything. His house is
he destroys everything he's ever had.
Destroy everything. Yes,
displacing dozens of workers.
Yeah, because he's not subtle anymore. Subtlety's gone.
Yeah,
but he's going to just scorch earth policy, which another thing that we're going to see a lot more in 80s movies. Mm-hmm. This is a lot of the testament of what we're going to see. Not to mention the indulgence. I wear gold and jewelry, but also he's damaged. But he's not going to talk about his damage. He's just going to talk about what I want to do in the future.
Yeah.
Whether what happened, why would you go to prison? Why'd you become a thief?
It's only when he's put into a corner.
I'm always going forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that comes to mind. I think probably the best dialogue sequence in the film, and I don't think there's any fighting on that, which is him and Tuesday Weld at the restaurant when he makes a failure to go on a date with her. I think it's one of the best written dialogue scenes.
It's James Caan's favorite scene he ever did.
Yeah, because, I mean, it's a beautiful scene of a guy who doesn't know how to talk to, not just women, but doesn't know how to talk to normal people in society. Because he's like outlining his entire life and what he wants to do. He's not for a moment taking into account what she thinks, what she wants, what she feels. But it isn't until she like kind of corners him with that, then that he starts to realize that there's a bit of give and take to relationship. It isn't what I want and what I'm going to accomplish. It's what we want together, what we're going to move forward with. Mm-hmm. And I like when he starts to realize what she wants to do. He's perfectly comfortable then working with her. You know, she says, I can't have kids. He's like, we'll adopt. We'll find a way to make it work. That's when he starts to grow as a kid. He does so much growth in a 20-page dialogue scene that then he does the rest of the film.
But it's perfectly executed. Not only that, but it's executed by his character. He doesn't sit for an answer. He just spits it out.
Yep.
He's not going to, like, what's the right thing to say here? Oh, we'll just adopt. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll make it better. I'll just patch it up and fine.
Yep. So that's how his response is with the cops too, though.
Yeah.
Is like, I could just, play the card, get out, but he pushes them further. And fun fact, one of the cops is played by, I can't remember his first name, but his last name is Santucci, who is a professional criminal who has actually worked on this film as a overseer and consultant for that stuff. He was the heavyset cop that kind of gets up in his face a lot more, and he also was on Miami Vice, also doing consulting and performing. But it's nice. I think if you're gonna do a movie about thievery, you've got to get somebody who's got an in on it. It's kind of like how Reservoir Dogs used Eddie Bunker, who was a professional criminal for a while, to kind of help schmooze in the details, because there's a lot of details in this film that I found astoundingly informative and interesting. That really make the movie, like, as much as it's not a movie about
Michael Mann learned from criminals.
Yeah,
where you have to get a certain tool, certain parts. You got to set up shop. Not to mention you think you work freelance, but there has to be a code to it.
Yep. So. And that's why I like that he's got this thing. I don't work for other people. I work for my crew. And when he starts to think like I could make some good money on this and move away, is when he starts to slip. And that's the tragic thing about it, is that he had rules, and had he followed his own rules, he'd been fine. They'd have kept going for a while. You know?
Yeah, do a little bit. But the enticement of a big score is always the increment of why you're doing it in the first place.
Yep.
You could probably make money selling Cadillacs in a small used car lot.
Yeah, it's only when he changes his mind and decides that the score is actually the wife and kid. It's the family that he wants. And it's a schmoozy thing, but it's done very well in this movie. And again, I will go back to it. This movie has very little thieving in it. There's maybe 20-25 minutes of a 2-hour movie that's devoted to that.
Right, and it has the right. You need that because people who like to do things, they'll love to talk about it more than to actually do it.
Yeah, it's the foreplay aspect that's really fun.
Yeah. I did an essay about we love foreplay more than actual things.
Yep.
And my reference is the Super Bowl. The pregame is longer than the game. We love foreplay.
And the commercials are what people tune in for as much as the game.
Yeah.
But yeah, with this movie, what's funny about it is this movie could survive and be very good if he wasn't a thief. If he was, say, a race car driver or something. The movie could survive just on the character interactions. But what's great about it is it's a good movie with those character interactions. And then every little bit, he hits you with this incredible action scene. Like I said, the opening, we're just kind of like lost in trying to figure it all out. That scene was
very discombobulating and intensely, because it's character lit, which I mean is the characters actually do the lighting themselves because they have to like see where
and the sparks and everything like that help light it. Yeah. I think the scene with the magnesium bar is maybe one of the best thief scenes or robbery or criminal scenes I've ever seen put to film. It is so incredible having the two, because they have to have two guys that's so heavy and hot, and they have a guy literally like putting out the fire as they're doing it, and then finding out that they actually shot that. Like they actually had a real vault door, because they said that's the only thing we know that this will work on. If we do a fake vault door, it might actually blow up or something. We don't have the details on how it would work. And so they had to get a real magnesium bar and a real vault door, have the real actors putting out the fire while they're doing it. It makes that scene even better knowing that there's no trickery. This was actually accomplished.
I absolutely agree, because that's what we enjoy this movie. There's actually details about actual thievery that Michael Mann learned from talking to these guys. And not to mention the cleverness of crafting these things, how you navigate, how you can break this unbreakable vault.
Yeah.
And we get that in Heat. How are you going to rob this bank that it's too impossible to rob? People tell us you can't rob this bank. More enticement to rob it, right?
As much as I like the suave criminals of Ocean's 11, I kind of like the impossible, dirty criminals of Michael Mann's world a little bit more. Just because when they accomplish it, I feel this like sense of winning more. I feel this sense of accomplishment with them.
Well, I don't really want to reference my wife a lot, but when we saw that vault in the very fancy house, in the dead center, symmetrical, Michael Mann likes to make things symmetrical. But it's very ritzy and fancy, and then you got this dirty James Caan approaching the vault, and my wife said, "Oh my God, you deserve to get robbed." And that's visual. You don't say any words; you just show it. You don't need a cue card. And my wife got the reaction right away. "Oh my God, you deserve to get robbed. You're just too
yeah." Well, and that's true. And even just seeing James Caan light up that cigarette and sit and like revel in his accomplishments,
marinate on what he accomplished
was such a. Like again, like the foreplay is great, but that finish is really great too. It's really cool. We also get Robert Prosky in the film, who I became aware of from Mrs. Doubtfire, Christine. But he plays Leo, our villain, who's
great. His glasses don't fit him, which is perfect character design.
That he's bigger than
the glasses.
Clothing, you know? Yeah. What I really liked about him is I'd read he was a theater actor. before. He had not done a film before. He'd kind of come in and they hadn't found the character. They'd been like really struggling to cast Leo. Yeah. And he came in just kind of on a whim, did the read, wasn't really like thinking he was going to get it. And what I think is funny about him is that this character is very simplistic. He's the guy who hires your villain, and then you realize that he's the bad guy. And it's like, it's such a classic trope of these kinds of movies. It has been for decades. But Robert Prosky's delivery convinces you, no, he's not going to screw him over. He actually convinces you he's not going to screw him over when you know he's going to screw him over. Yeah. And I think that's what the coolest thing about his character is.
You really think the other half of your movie, the other half of your payment went into shopping malls and portfolios and all that.
Even prior to that, when he helps him like adopt a kid and he like helps put things aside, I'm like, wow, he's got a good partnership here. And like, I know in the back of my head, of course he's screwing him, right. But in the front, I want to believe that Prosky is helping him, and I think that's
it's almost like the staple that we always say, that evil will sell you with a smile and peace and candy.
Yep.
It's going to be soft delivery.
Yep.
Yeah. And we know that. It's not going to be this harsh brutality. It's going to be sweet and smile and pleasant, and the aroma's going to enjoy it, and everything is, you're going to get everything you want, but then when it's time to pay up, it's like, look what I did to you. You returned my favor by crapping on me. I gave you a house, like all that stuff. Yeah.
Well, and we get that switch on the dime, too. I really like James Belushi in this movie. Jim Belushi is great in this and About Last Night. He had a good 80s of performances. And we kind of pick on him because he's not John, but like he did some really good work in the 80s. What breaks my heart is that, again, we know Robert Prosky's going to screw him. We know it's going to happen. But the moment that Frank says, no, you're going to give me my money. I said I'm out when I'm out. And we know that we know that this is happening. He walks away from the situation. Prosky doesn't give it a second thought. We're going to kill Jim Belushi. We're going to kill his buddy right now to show him what we mean.
And it's the launch pad of and that death is very obvious.
Yep.
It's not subtle. We're not doing subtle anymore.
No, there's a white van behind him so we can see the blood hit the van. And
blood and pieces of meat. I'm sure they had a meat packet in the back. That
crap. What shot.
But then, I don't know how they launched him. They must have had a springboard to launch him back on the van or whatever, but it was a great shot. And then you hold that shot. Michael Mann pretty much started what we will see in the 80s.
Yep.
And he did it with, we talked about The Keep. We talked about it with Manhunter. The staple of what we see with this 80s. And carried over a little bit to the 90s. But then you keep this elegant style as his signature.
Yep. Those three films, along with seeing what he did with Miami Vice, like he painted the 80s. Like he had the literal color palette of the 80s in his work. And that's why I'm so sad that I've not been a huge fan. I've liked a number of Michael Mann's recent, like 2000s onward films, but nothing beats 80s Michael Mann in my book. Because I liked his Miami Vice reboot. I liked Public Enemies, but like it just doesn't hit the same way it did then.
Well, it's that deceivement that it's all about style and elegance, but you have a really crafted story.
Yes.
I don't think Thief is a great script. I think it's great character script. I think it's character-driven heavy.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think it's, the ending about it, we could talk, you can clean that up. But he knows what he wants as a central character, and James Caan carries the movie.
It's one of the, I don't want to say easiest ways, but it's one of the best ways if you don't have a lot. And he didn't have a ton of screenwriting ability at that point. He had not really owned it with a number of films. But if you can pick one character and make that character the best character that's ever been put to film in your mind, then you can accomplish a lot.
But he understands beats when he writes. Yes. That you have this, looks like this guy can go off at any time. He talks about the plating guy. He goes in the office, and that he has a capability of going off. But he pounds it in. In fact, he's looking for a relationship. He suppresses it. But when he pisses him really off, he's going to go scorch earth and rampage. Michael Mann, also with the elegant style, knows about contrast. My favorite thing I would critique, the contrasting. I love the elegance of the Cadillac going into the industrial dirt and mud and everything. I love the costuming of them. He's going to wear that leather jacket, but he's got expensive jewelry on. So it's constantly this contrast that's played out, even though it's overall shot eloquently.
And that goes, too, even to how the environments play with what's being done there. The big robbery, in the center of the film. I had seen someone compare the bank vault, or the vault that they're breaking into, looks like it's from an excised 2001: A Space Odyssey scene. Because the chairs are very ornate, it's very flat, and it's shot in a way that has that.
Yeah, that's the scene we're talking about. That you deserve to get robbed. Yeah.
When that scene looks like it's an elegant place to hang out, and like these guys sit at these wooden tables and they do their work, and then we cut to this grimy, like explosive scene of like breaking into this vault. There is that contrast between like the elegant and the grime. And it's nice to see that that's where Khan's character is. He's elegant during the day, he's a bit grimy at night, or he's elegant when things are going well and very grimy when they're not.
Yeah,
you know,
these cars lot looks very nice with the news cars. And
and so, he knows. I like that scene too. He walks into the car lot and he knows where to move all the cars. Like he's very good at his actual day job too.
His sunlight
he's
job.
Smart enough to do that.
His sunlight job. I love it. For me, great films are memorable and unforgettable, and this is both. This is a great film.
Yeah, so this might... I want to say that my favorite Michael Mann movie is The Keep. I don't know if that's fair. I think his best movie is Thief. Of the ones I've seen, I think this might be my favorite in terms of overall quality, even though I still probably watch The Keep way too often.
For me, it's always going to be Heat. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But
I need to revisit Heat.
Same vernac, same kernel, same kind of seed planted.
Yeah, I need to revisit Heat because it's been a long time since I've seen Heat. We'll probably cover it on the show at one point. Maybe I'll change my mind then. But as of right now, in my mind, I love 80s Michael Mann, and I really love this movie. So,
and if you've seen Heat and not seen Thief, how dare you?
Yeah.
You have to see both.
I need Thief Heat. Yeah. What did you guys think about Thief from Michael Mann? Let us know in the comment section down below. We've now covered
I won't say it's a flawless masterpiece. There's some flaws to it, and there's a bumpy technical to making a movie, but it flows.
When a movie is this good, though, you have to find nitpicks. And I think that's where your mind goes, is it's like, it can't be that perfect. And that's where my thing comes from, is like little nitpicks that don't ruin the movie for me at all, but things that's almost my mind has to find something.
Yeah. Well, we've talked about movies that are actually flawless made, and it's not a masterpiece.
Yeah. So I really enjoyed this movie. Let us know down in the comments what you thought about the movie Thief. Which Michael Mann film should we cover next? There's a lot of stuff. We've actually only covered 80s Man on this show. So there's 90s Man, there's 2000s Man, there's Black Hat Man, if you really want it. Please comment down below what we should cover next. And while you're down there, please like and subscribe to the channel. You can like, subscribe, comment, share. They're all free things that help to support the channel and to make sure you never miss new episodes.
Yes.
If you'd like to financially support the show, we're always welcoming to that as well. Go ahead and check out the Patreon link down below, patreon.com/KyleNickOnFilm, and you can join one of the tiers. You get access to Picks with Kyle and Nick. This month we're doing our top 5 Alfred Hitchcock films. You also get early access to episodes. So if an episode's coming out on Thursday, you might get it on Tuesday. So check that out. Always some cool stuff in there. You can also pick the films we're going to talk about on the show. That's always great. You can find all my film reviews over at GoFilmReviews.com.
You can find my show, the St. Paul Filmcast, anywhere you find podcasts. And please don't steal this episode.